Hello YouTube. This is the first video in our test cutting series, and you may remember if you followed my other one, what we're actually testing here is the Rockstead Higo, however you say it, Higo. And we wanted to do a comparison to some knives that pretty much everyone would have. So this is what I will refer to as my control knife. The knife in question is this guy right here, because I figured quite a few people have this. It's a fairly well known entity, if you will. It's the Spyderco Para2. And this particular one's an S30V. That's 1,000 cuts in cardboard. It's varying lengths, cutting in all directions, just really random. And I started to kind of try to make this a really scientific test, and I quickly realized that I can't. I would have to know the makeup of this cardboard. I would have to have enough of this cardboard to do this test 3 times in exactly the same medium. I would have to make every cut exactly the same. I couldn't do that on my best day. Certainly not now at my age. So what I decided to do is make it more of a real world test. Cut cardboard like you would if you're, maybe cutting down a box to size it, or opening, or, just whatever, cutting trimming some off, or just cutting it up for recycling. And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing to do. And the way I conducted this test was here. Let's flip this back a page. I started first just the perfunctory 10 cuts. I didn't expect any change. I think everybody knows that S30V by Spyderco is pretty darn good stuff, so I expected no change. Then I did 100 cuts, and I cleaned the edge with just some old charcoal lighter and a rag here that I have, so that I was getting the impression of what the edge was, not what glue or crunched up cardboard, or if you go really fast through glue on labels like this, for instance, you can actually melt it and it'll form a hard knot on it. I wanted to know what the edge was doing, not what stuff like that was doing. So every 100 cuts it was cleaned, and then I tried to cut just plain typing paper. I didn't do the phone book paper until the very end of the test, and we'll get to that. When it got to a point where it would no longer shave hair, I used this right here, which is my homemade denim strap that's impregnated with diamond spray. It got exactly 2 strops, no more on each side, no less. Just 1, 2, 1, 2. 2 on each side, that's it. And all of these results are from that, so we'll just quickly go through this. 10 cuts, no change. You wouldn't think there would be. All of these edges were made hair popping sharp, so that they would be pretty much equal with the Higo, and I tried to get them as close as possible. The other knife that we're going to test is a Spyderco Military in CTS XHP, which just happens to be one of my favorite steels, and I'm just curious to see how it'll do. It's the next one we'll run in this test, and then finally we'll do the Higo itself. impressions on this, I really like this. Boy, it is comfortable. I think I said when I first showed this knife that I was kind of late to the Para2 game. It was one of those knives that was always on my list, and I never got around to getting it. And I just recently got a couple of them. I got this one, and I have one in M390. I didn't pick the one in M390 because it's not as common as this, and for a benchmark, I wanted something that pretty much everyone had. So that's the reason I took it in the S30V. Super comfortable, no hot spots. You know, if my arms would hold out, I think I could cut cardboard all day with it, and my hands would be fine. 100 cuts. We had a slight degradation to hair cutting. You know, still would go through the white paper like crazy. Just not a problem. At 200 cuts, it would still shave hair and cleanly cut paper. At 300 cuts, it would, you know, kind of cut hair. It was random. It would just pop it off in some spots, but it wouldn't cut paper cleanly. So that's when it got its first 2 passes on the strop, each side, and it went back to hair popping sharp, cleanly cutting paper. 400 cuts, it would still shave, but not as well. It was getting back to that random thing, and cleanly cutting paper, so no stropping done. 500 cuts, it would just barely shave, you know, stray hair here and there, and it cut the paper cleanly. 600 cuts, it wouldn't shave hair anymore. It would cut the paper, but it had some little spots that you had to be careful to get across. Not quite as good. It got 2 strops per side and went back to razor sharp. Now here, rather than 200, you'll notice after only 100 cuts, at 700, it wouldn't shave hair again. Still would cut paper cleanly. Now I'm thinking right about 700 cuts is when we're noticing actual real edge degradation, as far as a point where rather than just stropping, you would start thinking about taking it back to the stone. But it would go far longer than this. But I think there's real very, very minor degradation here. 800 cuts, will not shave, but it cut paper cleanly. Again, it got 2 strops per side, and it was back to, it would cut a stray hair or so, and it cut the paper very cleanly. At 900 cuts, it wouldn't shave. It would cut the paper cleanly, and because I was getting tired, I didn't strop it. I went to 1,000, and at 1,000 it cut paper cleanly. Of course, it still wouldn't shave. It got 2 strops on each side. It's back to cutting random hairs. I'm sure if I gave it like 5 strops on each side, it would probably shave again, and cuts paper cleanly. I also tried to cut this, and if you folks will pardon me, I'm going to go and get my little tripod and hook you up, and we'll show you some quick tests here. I'm trying to do this on my own. Miss Mary's having lunch, so I don't want to bother her for this. Let me get my little mini. There we go. And we'll just set you here. Let's see. We're getting ready for fall, as you can see, getting our decorations out. And if I do my part, I'm not going to say this is going to whiz right through here, but if I do my part, it does, after 1,000 cuts in cardboard and just that little bit of maintenance on the edge, it will still cut this stuff. So I am really chuffed with that. I can see why people think that these knives are so good. Is that 2 pieces or 1? Aha, I thought so. And you know, is it flying through there? No, but it'll still cut it if I do my part. And that's still a pretty smooth edge. It's pretty impressive, I think, for going through all that first with very minimal stropping. It had a total in 1,000 cuts, let's see, of let's see, we had 2 there. That's 4, 6, 8. So each side had 8 strops on it through this whole test, and we got 1,000 cuts out of that. We can still cut a stray hair just barely. It'll cut the telephone book paper just barely. Let me give let's do just some quick strops on this. Please ignore the gray cat. She is a camera hound. Aren't you, Tank? That's 3, 4, 5 per side. And this, by the way, this denim strap is holding up extremely well. Because it is cloth, I'm being careful, probably more careful than I would with the leather strap, so that I don't, you know, go the wrong way and nick it. But as long as I do my part, it's holding up extremely well. As you can see on this kind of paper, just razor smooth. Let's see what we got on this guy. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is, what was that, 5 strops on each side after 1,000 cuts, and look at that. Look at that. You can't see my hair because there's not much left. It's back to hair popping sharp again. Wow, that's impressive.